paroled to try and reduce the risk of COVID-19 within the correctional services facilities. Now, there have also been claims by some prisoners that the situation is worse than the authorities are letting on. Singabakho Nxumalo is the Correctional Services Spokesperson, and he joins us this afternoon. A very good afternoon to you, sir, and thank you so much for your time today. Now, as far as allegations of exaggerations about the state of South Africa's prisons, what is the real picture there? There have been allegations that, yes, there is overcrowding, allegations that there is a shortage of food, allegations that they are not able to practice social distancing adequately. What is the true nature of the lay of the land?
A very good afternoon, and thank you for giving us the opportunity. It is indeed not a correct picture that from time to time we have to respond to these malicious allegations, because when you look closely to what has happened over the past months in correctional services, the numbers do tell the real story. One will remember that before the president announced that the country was going on lockdown, there was an announcement in 2019 in December for the special remission of sentences, which reduced the number of inmates in our correctional facilities. And when COVID hit us, there was again another measure now, which was also to parole those inmates who were closer to reaching their minimum required time. And that reduced the inmate population from over 160,000 to now 130-something odd numbers. So it is therefore not true to say the overcrowding levels which we used to have in the past are still there. We've reduced overcrowding by more than 15%. But coming again back to the numbers of COVID-19, many people before March 2020 were saying it was going to be very bad in correctional facilities. And we've managed to put forward a serious fight, because when you look closely at the numbers, we only have 4,996 officials who contracted the virus, with only 2,918 inmates. But we've got to look closely at the recovery rate. We're currently standing at 94%, which is 7,502 out of 7,914 positive cases. Then does indicate that indeed we've been putting a serious fight, and it's been a battle that we've been fighting for. And I think we've been making good progress. Yes, now there's a resurgence of cases. We do see our officials again getting infected, merely because they live in the same communities where the virus is again, increasing. But for now, we're monitoring the situation quite closely. Our measures are still there, and we will again push, making a point that we don't feel the impact as many people would have expected.
Mr. Nxumalo, some of the allegations that we've been getting as far as prisoners not being getting the human rights that they deserve is issues of counseling around trauma that they may have experienced due to a loss of fellow inmates. Is that something that you've been focusing on as well?
The Department for Correctional Services, when it comes to its record on human rights, I think is doing very well. It compares even with some of the most developed countries in the world. And merely because the correctional system that we have is the one which is looking at what's the best care possible that you can give to a remanded person. Though, because our constitution is very clear, even if you're an inmate, you must be treated like a human being. So if there are special needs that inmates do require, those are given to them. Hence, in our facilities, we have social workers, psychologists, psychiatrists, a number of other specialists looking at different needs of inmates. And there they do respond to some of those emerging needs. So it cannot be true, therefore, to say inmates are not receiving the appropriate care. Even if, let's say, there's a shortage in other parts or in some of our centers, we do have the flexibility in terms of either deploying additional officials to those centers or even moving those inmates where they can get the best possible care. So yes, the system is not 100% correct, but I think the measures that we have in place are sufficient to deal with the current situation at hand. Hence, then even the numbers that you see in terms of those who've been infected are still at low levels. But we take nothing for granted. Wherever people cry for help, we respond to that. But the officials are always on the ground. They pick up these things. We've got sufficient monitoring. So in case there are other things, we're able to respond to them. We even have what we may call a watchdog, the Judicial Inspectorate for Correctional Services, which is there looking at our conduct, the services that we make available. So therefore, for one to say inmates are not even getting sufficient food, it's definitely not true. I think when it comes to such, we are doing very well as a country, and we pride ourselves to say, you know what, we have changed, what was then the prison system in the past to a real correctional service that our constitution aspires to achieve.
Let's
So
look,
I
Mr.
think
Nxumalo. Let's look, Mr. Nxumalo, at some of the issues, and let's get an update from you, if we may. In early May, the president announced that there would be parole given to some low-risk inmates, and the total number of that was 19,000. How many of those have thus far been released?
We've released just about 14,000 of those. The remaining ones are the ones who are still busy with completing their rehabilitation programs. The announcement by the president was clear to say, we'll not just open the gates and allow people to walk out, but it must be people who have done rehabilitation programs, who've been assessed, and parole was confirmed that indeed they are ready for reintegration back into society. So just over 14,000 are now out. So the remaining one, it's a matter of ensuring that they complete those programs as enshrined in their correctional sentence plan. And then you also require parole boards to say, indeed, these people are ready, because what we do not want is to place out a person who's not ready, because the moment that person is placed out, he will then start causing trouble, and that is what we do not want. Hence, then, we have to make it a point that we follow the procedure as is. We do understand the pressure, but I think we've covered quite a lot of ground, because it's just less than now 4,000 which is left. But even with those, we are saying, let us do everything according to the book.
As far as repeat offenders are concerned, the past has shown that some offences actually get committed by those who are released from correctional services facilities. What type of feedback have you gotten so far? The 14,000 that have already been released, have any of them in any way or other actually contravened the law since their release?
I can state that some years are bad, but it's not even 1,000 rand. I'll just have to check the figure, but it's not even 1,000. 1,000 inmates who have reoffended and are back in our facilities. But we look closely at what type of crimes do these people commit. Hence, then they are back in our care. In most cases, it's the crimes of need. Which is something I think as a country that we need to address, to say how to respond, to some of the social needs of South Africans in general, and again of those who've been placed out from correctional facilities, so that they don't find themselves desperate out there, not having food. Some, we find that even their families do not want to accept them back. The society, we always reach out to people out there to say, please welcome ex-inmates and parolees, so that they start to feel like normal human beings, then get them involved in all other activities taking place in the society. Be mindful, yes, indeed, there are parole conditions that they need to comply with, but the moment the society ostracize them, that is then driving back into the life of crime, of which we do not want. We don't want our facilities, becoming, a revolving door of criminals. Hence, then always say, a person who's been through our system, that person has been rehabilitated, that person has a skill. Given a chance, that person, will do wonders. Hence, when you look at the number of parolees and professionals in this country, it's above 62,000, and only 2% of those people reoffend, which then does indicate that a number of them do indeed take charge of that second chance.
Let's take a look percentage-wise at the number of the infections that are actually found in prisons right now. The latest numbers for South Africa is close to 8,000. What are the numbers in prisons? How many of those actually happened within the correctional services?
The numbers in our centers are very low, as I've said. Where we find slightly more infections is with regard to officials. I'll give you the numbers dating from, I think, from late March up to where we are now. As I've said, we have 4,996 officials. who have contracted the virus, and with 2,918 inmates. But I said, let us look at the recovery rate. The recovery rate is standing at 94%. And then now coming now to say, how many people are in their system are having the virus, meaning active cases. When you look at officials, it's only 199. Looking at inmates is only 75. So then it does give you a clear picture of where we are. And also then it deals with this myth where people often say correctional services, is a breeding ground for COVID-19, of which is not the case. We've been saying this all along, but for some reason, people still want to position correctional services as a fertile ground, for COVID, to spread. When you have only 199 officials, actively having the virus in their system with only 75 inmates, then it does give you a better picture of where we are. But we say, as low as these numbers are, we take nothing for granted. We are in this fight, and we want to make it a point that, we reduce these numbers to a 0%.
Let's find out now about the fate of the 4 prisoners that have escaped in 2 different prisons. Just an update from you as to where you are in tracking them.
There are leads that we are following. It is unfortunate that you will have 4 inmates escaping, under lawful custody. And hence, as a department, we said, let us launch not just external investigations, but even internal ones to look at what could be, the gaps, within our facilities, because that will give us a clear indication of where these gaps are and how best, can we fix them. And if there are certain people who may have dropped the ball, we need to deal with them. But for us now, what is important is to get this 4 back into custody as soon as possible, so that we don't expose the public out there, because we consider these 4 to be dangerous. For the fact that they escaped from lawful custody, it says a lot about them. Hence, then, the sooner we get them, the better.
It also says a lot about the lack of security in your correctional services facilities. Where are the cracks?
When you look over time to where we come from, we have reduced the number of escapes quite significantly. And even I think last year we had less than 60 people escaping. But again, you've got to look at the rearrest. This year alone, we have had just over 108 escapes, and 90 of those people were rearrested. But we said that is not good enough. We have to make it almost impossible for anyone to escape. But from time to time, you do find those gaps to say, our officials, where do they really drop the ball? Is it when they go out with the spans, we said no, only few of inmates, escape from there. And then when they're inside their cells, to say what type of tools, do they have, at their disposal, which then assist them in terms of escaping, and to say, do they even receive some form of, assistance, from other forces. So we look at all, at all those factors. Hence, then it's important that we always launch an investigation, because that's the only area where we're able then to get a better picture of what is really happening.
Mr. Nxumalo, we'll have to leave it at that for this afternoon, but thank you so much for the update of COVID-19 within the country's correctional services facilities, as well as the measures that are currently put in place to try and track those 4 prisoners that have run out of the prisons.